So I finally saw the Joker, and in this video, we're gonna try to get inside of the deranged mind of the Joker played by Joaquin Phoenix. But the real question is, could something like this really happen to somebody? And the bigger question I wanna ask is, how responsible is someone for their actions when they have a traumatic brain injury? So, by the way, in case you didn't figure it out yet, there will be some spoilers in this video. What is up, everybody? This is Chris from The Rewired Soul, where we talk about the problem, but focus on the solution. And if you're new to my channel, what I try to do is take different topics from the YouTube community or pop culture, like movies and TVs, try to see what we can learn from them. I try to blend in some psychology, maybe some philosophy, maybe some neuroscience, and just get our wheels turning a little bit. So if you're into that stuff, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. And every video we do, we donate 20% of the ad revenue to a good cause. So this video, since we're gonna be talking about some mental illness and things like that, we will be donating 20% of the ad revenue to NAMI, all right? NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, a great organization. So if you would like to donate to them directly, I will provide a link down in the description and in the pinned comment below. All right, so this movie is the untold origin story of the Joker, and he's played by Joaquin Phoenix. Arthur is a man living in Gotham City just trying to get by and take care of his mother, but he's someone who also keeps getting beat down by society. It becomes apparent that Arthur struggles with mental illness and is on upwards of 7 medications to keep his illness under control. Arthur is also seeing some type of social worker who helps him out and gets him these medications prescribed, but because of lack of funding, this gets taken away. We also discover that Arthur has a disorder called the pseudo-bulbar effect, which is kind of like Tourette's, but for laughter, and he can't control it. We later find out that this is part of a traumatic brain injury based on being repeatedly abused as a child. But is it possible that the brain injury also set him on the road to becoming a psychopath? So for the answers to these questions, we're gonna be referring to one of my new favorite books, which is called The Science of Evil by Simon Baron-Cohen, okay? This dude has spent, I believe, about 20 years studying evil and empathy and all these other things, all right? So this book dives into the psychology, the neuroscience, and a variety of different environmental factors that can turn somebody into a psychopath, all right? So Simon and other scientists have discovered that there's actually an empathy circuit in the brain. When these parts of the brain aren't communicating properly, it causes people to lack empathy for their fellow human beings. This is something interesting because a lot of people want to take the brains of psychopaths and study them after they die. And while there are some answers we can get, like if there are abnormalities with the physical appearance of different parts of the brain, a lot of this has to do with how these parts of the brain communicate with each other when, you know, the quote unquote lights are turned on. So throughout the movie, even before transforming into the Joker, we see that Arthur doesn't have much fear. We can see this as he chases a bunch of kids who stole his sign. He also gets up on stage to perform his horrendous stand-up act. Most of us can't even stand up in front of our coworkers and do a presentation for work. So to explain this lack of fear, we're gonna turn to Dr. James Blair, all right? This is another scientist that Simon Baron-Cohen refers to in his book, The Science of Evil, and James Blair has done a lot of neurological studies on psychopaths, and it comes to find out that the amygdala is not working properly in the brain of psychopaths. So before we jump into that, let's do a quick little brain discussion, all right? So do me a favor, hold your hand up like this, all right? So we're gonna do a quick little hand-brain model, all right? So this part of the brain, all right, this is the amygdala. You fold this over. This part is going to be the hippocampus. Remember that, we're gonna come back to that later. If you fold your fingers over like this, these 2 middle fingernails, those are the prefrontal cortex. This is a pretty accurate kind of shaping of the brain, all right? This is something that Dr. Daniel Siegel does, is kind of give people a visual of the brain, all right? So first we're gonna be focusing on the amygdala. What the hell does the amygdala do? The amygdala is part of our survival instincts, all right? You know that fight, flight, or freeze that comes into play? That is largely based on the amygdala. It also helps regulate your emotions and everything like that. So for example, people who have any type of anxiety disorder, like I've been diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder, people have an overactive amygdala. We get stressed or scared like very easily, right? Or we start freaking out because the amygdala is acting too much. But in psychopaths, it's been discovered that the amygdala isn't working properly, so their fear response is much different. So what people like James Blair did was they put psychopaths in neuroimaging scans and they found that the amygdala is less active under stressful situations. So when asking how this happens, they discovered that early ongoing stress affects the amygdala greatly. And as you recall, Arthur was repeatedly abused and they found him chained to a radiator. So remember the hippocampus? The hippocampus is responsible for our memories. And as you can see, the hippocampus and amygdala are very closely linked. And basically what that does is the hippocampus, since it's responsible for memories, it reminds us like, yo, you should be scared of this thing. If you wanna go back into like kind of, you know, some ancient evolutionary psychology and brain development. Basically, if you were walking past some tall grass and a lion jumps out, all right, and you survived it, your hippocampus would have to log that memory and say, yo, next time you're walking past tall grass, maybe you should be a little bit worried that a lion might jump out and eat your face off, all right? But like James Blair discovered, is that the hippocampus is also affected by ongoing stress at an early age, or even later on in life. So part of the hormonal response involved in this is the amygdala triggers the hypothalamus to trigger the pituitary gland. That triggers ACTH, the adrenocorticotropic hormone. This is carried from the brain through the bloodstream to the adrenal glands, which triggers cortisol, and cortisol is the stress hormone. This stress hormone then sends a signal back up to the hippocampus being like, yo, you should be afraid of that. But like in Arthur's case, ongoing childhood exposure to stress shrinks the hippocampus and diminishes that fear response. So when you start to combine the problem with the empathy circuit in the brain, the ongoing traumatic experiences as a child and how that affects the hippocampus and the amygdala, we can start to see how someone begins on the road to becoming a psychopath. So the question I would love for you to answer down in the comments below is, what are your thoughts? Like, now that you know a little bit more about traumatic brain injury, how childhood abuse can affect how somebody turns out, how responsible is that person for their actions, especially if the brain is actually damaged, all right? Let's have a conversation down in the comments below, okay? But anyways, that's all I got for this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. And a huge, huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel over on Patreon, as well as everybody who supports the channel by buying my merch, like this cool Rewired Soul hoodie that we got out, all right? And the books I write and everything like that. You are all awesome, all right? Anyways, that's all I got for this video. I'll see you next time.